After a long wait from Gameweek 7 and the international break, we finally got to Gameweek 8. It actually turned out to be quite a defensive-heavy week for the FPL community. It looks like everybody in the community got defensive clean sweeps over the past week. So, Greg, I saw that you played your wild card. You absolutely killed it. First time around, first game week after your wild card. How did your week go? Give us some details.
Hey Clyde, yeah, I mean, it's been 2 weeks. It feels like it's been forever, and probably because of the 455 wildcard drafts that I had to put together before I clicked the button. But yeah, it was good. I mean, I started end of game week 7, and I had some serious issues in my team by the time game week 8 rolled around. Rudiger injured, Rafinha not going to play, Alonso not going to play, and then I had some bullets that I really dodged because I had Dyer in my team, and he obviously scored an own goal, and Jimenez who blanked. So clicking the wildcard button definitely worked for me. I managed to get some real good picks in there. Chilwell with 15 points, Cancelo with a clean sheet. I've got Trent back, another clean sheet. Foden in there with an assist. Obviously captain Salah. I don't know anyone who was mad enough not to captain Salah this week, and Wilson. So although I had the Antonio and Lukaku blanks and the old 1 minute cameo from James, it was still a great week, and I had the legend Livramento coming in off the bench again to give me another 6 points when Zaha was ill. So all in all, I scored 79 points, and really amazing week for my whole team, because I went from a rank of about 260,000 to 65,000, so into the top 100k, and really I feel like my team's in a good place and nicely positioned in the rankings. How did it go your side?
Yeah, man, all I'd say is Mo Salah, triple captain on him there. He's got me 39 points.
What an inspired choice. I mean, that's more points than I think I've ever gotten on a triple captain, and I usually save them for the double game weeks, so that was really good.
Yeah, dude, look, you know what, 79 points as well, but I took a hit, so I ended up on 75 points, and I only had 10 players starting for what feels like the millionth time this season. I didn't have a full set of players.
Yeah.
But look, you know, I took the hit and I brought in Son and Adam Armstrong for Ronaldo and MacArthur. Now, I deliberately made those changes because, especially with MacArthur, I knew that, you know, the ceiling for him is the floor, is so low for him. It's probably going to come on and get 2 points at the most. I don't even know if he even played yesterday. But the disappointing part was Adam Armstrong didn't play at all. And we all know about the scare about Son with the COVID, testing positive for COVID and things like that. So it was such a relief. I found it like an hour after I transferred him in. And at that time, I couldn't even do anything. So I decided I'll just hold him. And whatever happens, I'll need my bench to cover him, because it didn't make any sense for me to take another hit to remove him. You know, it was never going to work out that way. And thankfully enough, he played. And to compound that, you know, I had Raul Jimenez. He didn't start either. He came off for the last 2 minutes. Came on for the last 2 minutes. But then on the upside is that I had Gray and Saiz coming off the bench, and Saiz scored, even though he conceded twice. So I had 9 points coming off the bench, so that really, really helped. And I suppose it's my fault that I've kind of treated my last bench option, you know, haven't really taken it seriously. So if I did do that there, and there are enough players to be able to fill that place, then yeah, I could have had a full playing 11. But no complaints anyway. I'm really happy with my game week.
Yeah, it really is the season of needing bench cover. I can't say how many times Livramento has come off my bench with a clean sheet, and it's now starting to get like your second and third bench players are often needed as well. So it really is important to have a decent bench, and it's a little bit frustrating at times because you want to put all the money into your starting 11, but it just seems to be so difficult with players getting sick, injuries, and then obviously the sort of roulette that we dodge with Pep and now a couple other teams as well.
Yeah, no, definitely, and so it will be interesting to see, like, how I think on the other hand, like, having so many budget options and not all of the premiums really firing at the moment is really helping us, because then it does maybe allow us to take those punts on the likes of a Foden, Jesus, Grealish, those risky picks, knowing that you're going to have a full bench. So I think it does have an upside, but I must say, for me, like, psychologically, it messes with me because I need a clear game plan, and when I have a selection headache, it really, really messes me up. And I have one this week now as well. But yeah, I'll have to decide how I'm going to approach that and change my, the way I go about selecting my starting 11. But so we've at least we've both come off good weeks. Again, I know my overall rank got halved, like from 563,000 after a few poor weeks. My wildcard is from game week 4 is finally paid off. I've been talking about it for the last few weeks, and now I'm down to like 240 or so. And I also feel like my team is in a good place. So yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's going to be like I've got a couple players. Eventually I went with Chilwell and with James, and with Foden and Cancelo, and those are the real rotation risks. Those 4 players, and I just said to myself, I think these players are going to score really highly when they do play, and I just mustn't be upset if they don't. And that's ultimately what my plan was, to have some sort of bench cover. I don't have the strongest bench in the world, but I've got guys that are going to play. And if one of those guys, one of the main players is left out or benched or gets subbed on for some reason, I've basically just come to terms with it and tried. And my plan for going forward is to not get upset and just say it's my long-term plan and to go with it.
Yeah, and I suppose if you're getting 2 or 3 points from a 4.5 million midfielder, that's amazing, I suppose, because those 3 points, especially with the ranking so tight at the moment, it makes such a big difference as well.
Yeah, it all helps, and I mean, when you've got Livramento just bringing those clean sheets every week, it's also great.
Yeah, I started him. I didn't even waste time. I didn't even keep him on the bench. I actually started him oversized. That's how confident I was of him. But yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, so looking ahead to game week 9. Can you believe we're in game week 9 now? Eh?
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, let's talk about captaincy options. Now, we know we've been building up to game week 7 since preseason, I suppose, knowing that there's fixture swings and so on, knowing that Lukaku was going to move to Chelsea. And now, all of a sudden, I must say, I'm not so hot on Lukaku anymore. I'm not sure if I really want him. And that's for a few reasons, but I know you've also posted some stuff up on Twitter as well. Talk us through it. What do you think of Lukaku, the captain, this week?
Well, I must say, with my wildcard drafts, I mean, I actually had Son in 90% of them, and I kind of came to this head where I didn't really feel like I could fit Son and Lukaku in my squad and have a reasonable enough sort of balance in the team. And I didn't know what I was going to do until that news came out that Son had tested positive for COVID, and then my decision was made for me. But I just couldn't get around just how good Lukaku's fixtures are coming up. I mean, Brentford was always going to be the tougher game in game week 8, but now Norwich, Newcastle, and Burnley. I mean, those are the dream 3 games. So it's very difficult to leave him out. And when it comes to captaincy, it's quite interesting because I think a few weeks ago my model had Lukaku as the clear captain choice for game week 9, and as it stands after the last few weeks and his real poor performance and lack of any points, he's dropped all the way down to 10th spot. Essentially, any Chelsea defender is a better pick, which is just madness. But this is what the model's telling us, and you've got the likes of Antonio, Zaha, and of course the one that you can never ignore, Mo Salah. I mean, he's just been unbelievable. So I think the discussion this week is really going to be who's going captain Salah against United, and who's going captain Lukaku against Norwich. And it's really the classic case of form versus fixtures. And if I look at my model, and it's something that I've been looking to follow as closely as possible, because the data really does know best. Salah's at the top of that list, and interestingly enough, it's Chilwell who's the next best option. And when you think about it, it kind of makes sense because the Chelsea are 62% to keep a clean sheet against Norwich, which is just pretty much the best you can get when it comes to clean sheets. And when you combine that with the fact that he's a guy who's been scoring goals, getting assists, it's just almost the perfect storm. If you're gonna go a defender captaincy option, this is probably one of those weeks where you can actually pull it off. And I think the best stat out of all of them is that Chilwell, his sub-on percentage over this season and last season is 0%. So if he doesn't start, he's not going to get subbed on. And that's a huge factor when you are facing a little bit of rotation risk, is that, if you're going to take a spicy pick, at least you've got that in the back of the mind that if Chilwell doesn't play, you've still got backup with your vice captain choice.
So you got your spicy pick in there with Chilwell. Yeah. Look, I actually, it goes against the way I played, I suppose, captaining defenders. I just never got used to doing it, But I can see the upside to it because that's one of the reasons why I'm not keen on Lukaku, and I don't even know if I even want to bring him in, because I'll tell you why. I'm not I suppose, you mentioned the form versus fixtures debate, but I'm looking at data versus eye test. And when I look at the way Chelsea is playing, I think, the fact that their midfield is kind of lacking creativity at the moment. They don't have they're relying on their defenders to, the wing backs for their creativity and so on. And I think the whole Lukaku and Timo Werner up front, I don't know if it's just kind of unbalanced the team a little bit, but I think that whole setup is not conducive to Lukaku at the moment. And maybe it's a classic case of overthinking it, but that whole thing just leaves me very underwhelmed at the moment. And that is why, I'm even though I didn't even know that your model went the route of making Chilwell the best pick, but
Salah's the best pick, but
Chilwell
the second best. Yeah.
Yeah, and as Chelsea being as a Chelsea player, I suppose, and it makes so much sense because if you look at it, Chilwell has scored 2 games in a row. Rudiger has scored. Alonso has scored goals. They've all provided assists. I mean, almost every single attacking return is coming from the defenders even. So it just makes there's so much of upside to captaining the Chelsea defenders at the moment. It's just whether you have that risk appetite to want to go for it.
Well, it breaks rule number 1 in FPL, which is never captain a defender. But also at the same time, you do have to look at the data, and Salah he's the clear choice. But on any other given week, he is miles ahead. And if we look at it this week, he's only very, very slightly ahead of basically all the Chelsea defenders. So it's something to consider this week if you are looking for a spicy choice. I would say the other spicy choice would be Edouard from Crystal Palace. He's popped up there, probably just behind Chilwell. Zaha's on the list if he's back from his illness. So there are a couple of options this week that are going to be relatively close, but it really is going to be difficult for anyone not to pick Mo Salah. But the other thing I want to say about Lukaku is that I think it was today that Thomas Tuchel was speaking about Lukaku, and he was saying that Lukaku's just exhausted, and he's playing a Champions League game tonight. It's going to be interesting to see whether there's perhaps a rotation risk now for Lukaku on the weekend. If the manager's speaking about their player just being exhausted and that's the reason that he hasn't returned in the last 4 weeks, it kind of hints at a bit of rotation. So if it was a close decision before, for me, I think Lukaku's almost out of the picture as a captain choice. I think the 2 options that I'm going to be looking at are Salah and Chilwell, and in the back of the mind, there's always that chance of a Zaha punt, but for me, I think it's going to be probably one of the first 2.
Yeah, and that's why I feel the same way as well. I remember when a few weeks ago when I played my wildcard, I remember I spoke about using Ronaldo as a placeholder for Lukaku, so I can it's one transfer. Yeah. And now I mean, I suppose it just shows how you can't just book transfers because things change so quickly. And after having like 3 or 4 weeks to assess, I looked at it and I'm just so underwhelmed. And I was looking at the numbers and I see that, okay, fine, forget the underlines or whatever, just look at actually what the actual numbers. And Raul Jimenez, even though Wolves have been so underwhelming at times, he's just like scored 4 points less than Lukaku all season. So, and at the price difference, I mean, it doesn't even make sense anymore. And when I look at the amount of options, like, and by the way, inspired choice in bringing Wilson straight back in. I saw that you brought him in.
Yeah, I was about to say that's an interesting sort of pick on the same subject, because I would never ever in my wildest dreams have brought Wilson in if I just looked at the fixtures. Arsenal, okay, Crystal Palace is a decent one, but then Chelsea, Brighton, the fixtures really don't look fantastic at all. But interestingly enough, he was so high up on my model ratings that time and time again when I did my 455 wildcard drafts, it just didn't make sense not to have him, and it just showed you that someone who's a quality player, even though Newcastle are ranked 17th going forward in the attacking ratings. Quality really is more important than fixtures. So I picked him and he scored, and I think he's one of those guys who just always seems to be on the score sheet, always seems to be picking up the bonus points. What an amazing player! So I was very chuffed with that pick.
Yeah, because I hate saying this because I get annoyed when people say I almost did it, but when I was doing my transfers, I kind of like. I had enough money to do Son and Wilson instead, but then I chose Armstrong. So, and I'm not going to beat myself up about it because Southampton's fixtures were just so good as well that I thought at 6 million, I may as well just chance it. But I'm genuinely looking, because now I've been seeing some noises on Twitter as well that Adam Armstrong might not even reclaim his place in the team next week because was it Armando Broja who started and scored?
Yeah,
he played so well, and I didn't see that game, but. Apparently, now it may just be the case where Armstrong might struggle to get his place back in the team. So I'm genuinely considering just bringing Wilson in and as a direct replacement for Armstrong, and I can do it in one free transfer because I have money in the bank as well. But I suppose against Crystal Palace, does Wilson become another maybe spicy captaincy option?
He's not. He's actually not. He's all the way down in 20th place. So I wouldn't even consider him for this week. I think he's one of those guys that I don't think has an incredibly high ceiling. I don't think that he's going to be scoring many hat tricks in these games, just because of Newcastle's sort of lack of attacking ability. But if Newcastle score, and they usually get one or two, he's almost certainly. I mean, I think his goal involvement is something like 75% this season or something ridiculous. So you're almost guaranteed to get something out of him, and that consistency is what's putting him high up in the rankings.
So I have a story about Wilson, right? So last season, and I spoke just now about the selection headaches, right?
Yeah.
So remember when we're having all these COVID postponements or whatever. So I tried to be clever about it and have a strong bench. I sacrificed a premium and I strengthened up my bench, right? And the one fixture I ended up benching Wilson and I had him as the first option as on my bench, and he was playing Palace. And so the game was 0-0 right up until like the 80th minute. And funny enough, I had Patrick Van Aanholt in my starting 11. And he was, at that time, Van Aanholt was on 9 points because he clean sheet plus 3 bonus. And Wilson scored twice, gotten 12 points, wiped out the clean sheet and Patrick Van Aanholt's bonus. I'll never ever forget that. And that's why, like, when I think of this fixture here specifically, I'm like, I may as well just ask the question. But it's one of those that I just cannot forget, because that was like almost like that was a massive point swing, put it that way.
that is huge. It's 21 point swing or something. Yeah,
something. No, like that.
It's big. Yeah, if you'd had him versus Van Aanholt, but yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe we should go through the fixtures and actually look at sort of the games individually and see what the best options are there.
Yeah. So first up is finally we have a Friday kickoff, which is so awesome. Less time to overthink everything, right? And some Friday night football as well. So we got Arsenal and Villa. So Villa, man, what happened over there against Wolves, eh?
Yeah, I mean, just again, like Villa just they actually were looking pretty good defensively in the last few weeks, and then just Wolves came back out of nowhere in that game, and 3-2 was a really high scoring game. So it'll be interesting. I think this week, if we look at the Villa game, so we've got Villa versus Arsenal. In terms of goals scored for the fixture, it's sort of middle of the road at 2.73 in total. We've got Villa, who are projected to score 1.24 goals, and Arsenal 1.49. So sort of very average figures. I don't think we're going to expect too much excitement out of this one. And yeah, I don't think there are any players really from either team that we're really targeting at this stage. I mean, I've got Ramsdale as keeper, hoping for a clean sheet, but Arsenal are only 29% to keep a clean sheet, and Villa are 23%. So when you look at all of that, there's not much on the attacking side, not much on the defensive side. I don't think I'm too disappointed to only have Ramsdale in my team out of those two.
Yeah, fair enough, because even when I'm looking at the expected numbers as well, it's all very middling for both Arsenal and for Villa as well. So yeah, it's for me, this fixture is kind of a hard avoid, for this coming game week. And then the next one is the one, I suppose, the talking point that will continue from the Lukaku captaincy is Chelsea and Norwich. Now, I suppose that's the one that everybody's looking at, and like you say, maybe trying to double up. And I've seen some people even trying to triple up on Chelsea defenders for this upcoming run.
Yeah, so I've doubled up personally. I mean, we've got Chelsea at 62%, like I said, to keep a clean sheet. And I don't think on any model I've seen anything sort of past 65% on any given week. So it's almost as good as you can get. In terms of goals, Chelsea are projected to score the most goals this week at 2.27, but that's not a crazy high figure. I think it's, if City or Liverpool were playing Norwich, I think that figure would be closer to 3. So we're looking at a decent attacking figure, an amazing defensive figure. And we're not even considering Norwich assets. So, if my advice would be don't captain Lukaku. Actually, after all of this, Chilwell's a real opportunity, I think. If you're not going to go Mo Salah, and I think the double Chelsea defense certainly makes sense.
And in terms of rotation risks on these Chelsea defenders, do you not fear that Chilwell could be benched and Alonso comes in?
Yeah, there's a huge risk of that. But like I said, Chilwell's sub-on percentage is 0. So if he does get benched, you basically, with the rotation, I think you've got to just accept that it could happen. And if it does, you just got to hope that you've got enough bench cover to sort of replace it.
So have you sold yourself on the idea of captaining Chilwell this week, or is it something that's still up in the air?
I think the armband's firmly on Salah at the moment, and it's going to be sort of, do I change my mind at the last minute? I'm going to leave that decision for probably late on Friday.
Good stuff. And then the next one that we also touched on a little bit was Crystal Palace and Newcastle. Now, we saw Palace fight back quite well in last night's fixture against, Arsenal was the one who scored, a last-minute goal there. But, Crystal Palace, Newcastle could be quite an interesting one, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually third on the list for number of goals in this week's fixtures. So I think we should see a few goals flying around. Not the best defenses from either side. Newcastle are only at 20% to keep a clean sheet. Crystal Palace are at 30%, so slightly favoured. But in terms of goals, Newcastle are 1.2 projected goals, and Crystal Palace 1.63. So I think if anything, you're looking at Crystal Palace assets here, and I think you're looking at attackers, and I think the guys to look at are Edouard, and assuming Zaha's back from illness, he would be the other guy that I would go for. He's in my wildcard team, so definitely was targeting this fixture. And I think we're going to see a couple goals from the Crystal Palace guys, and hopefully Wilson comes to the party as well.
Zaha is the biggest troll. He's trolled me every single time. I think we spoke about this a few weeks back. So I don't know. I live with the emotional scars from that day. So yeah, okay. And then interesting one here: Everton versus Watford. Now I still have Demarai Gray in my team, and so he seems like an interesting one here in this fixture, I suppose. And then a lot of people still have Townsend, but what you make of this fixture?
Yeah, I think it's obviously heavily favours Everton. Watford looked sort of all over the place with the new manager Claudio Ranieri against Liverpool, but what a baptism of fire to come up and have to play the team that's just in incredible form. So I think Ranieri will have had a little bit of time this week now, at least with his team, so they should be slightly more organised, but I think Everton have to be huge favourites to score goals. So I think Gray's a good pick. He's probably in the top 20 for players this week. I think Calvert-Lewin's still injured. So Decore has actually come out. So there's news come out today that he's fractured his foot. So he's also out. So I think you're pretty much left with Gray or Townsend, and I think both are decent options for this week. On the Watford side, I think I would never rule out Sarr to score some goals. They seem to be putting him as the centre forward man now in the new lineup. So I think he should actually flourish a bit. I think later on, once they get their organisation together and maybe come across some better fixtures. But for now, I'd be targeting Gray and Townsend. Everton, I think, are 45% to keep a clean sheet, which is really decent, and 1.77 projected goals.
Yeah, interesting one over there. So I think this is one of those where when I just like provisionally set up my team, I moved Gray off my bench into my starting 11, but then it means that I do have some decent players on the bench, so I need to decide again, like I said, selection headache, what I'm going to do with that over there.
I would definitely start Gray against Watford. I think he's a must-have. If he was in my team, I wouldn't even cross my mind to bench him. Yeah,
definitely. And then Leeds versus Wolves. So I held Rafinha, and I suppose with good reason, because I'm at 6.5 million. There was really no reason for me to be hasty and get rid of him. So, but I saw on your fixture, especially on the defensive side, Wolves ranked quite high. So what you making of this fixture here?
Yeah, so I mean, Wolves are 31% to keep a clean sheet. Leeds are at 29%, and interestingly enough, I was quite surprised when I saw this. This is the snooze fest fixture of the week, all the way down in last place at 2.42 total goals. So I think it's a combination of Leeds. Leeds have been quite poor this season in general, and Wolves have been unable to score. So you've got sort of this combination of Wolves can't score and pretty relatively decent defence. And Leeds haven't really been shooting lights out, and even though their defence is poor, they're up against a poor attack. So I think I wouldn't expect too many goals, and it's tough. I think Rafinha, you definitely want to be playing. He's just such a class player, and he's scored some really good goals for Brazil during the break, and he will have been well rested now, and he'll be back in the side. So Rafinha is an option to for sure keep, but I wouldn't be expecting a hell of a lot out of this fixture, to be honest.
Well, interestingly enough, I was just looking at the expected numbers, and in terms of XG, Wolves, they've been ranking quite high since the beginning of the season anyway, but they're fourth, so they have an XG of 12.52, and the variance has slightly improved now. Now they have 8 goals, mostly because of the 3 they scored in this last weekend, right? So I'll take that with a little bit of a pinch of salt, because it feels like a bit of an outlier there as well.
But I mean, that's a shocking delta. I mean, what is that, 66%? I mean, that's right. That's incredibly low. And when you've got the top teams and scoring it well over that, and I mean, if you just have to look at one player like a guy like Son, who's scoring at close to 150, 160% of his XG, to know that's really bad. So,
but shame. We can't be comparing Wolves to Son. Son is a stat buster, man. He defies all the odds. So yeah. And then on the other side of it, in terms of expected goals conceded, Wolves are actually the second lowest as well, just after City.
Yeah.
And they have an XGC of 8.05, and they've conceded 8. So not bad numbers there either, under the circumstances. And so it's quite an interesting one. And I mean, look, Wolves are one of the form teams at the moment. They've won 4 of their last 5 games, which is quite interesting as well.
Yeah, so I think, like I said, I wouldn't I mean, it's always possible that you get that outlier where an early goal is scored and then the game just opens up. But for the most part, I'd expect a relatively low-scoring game. And yeah, I'm glad I jumped off the Wolves' attacking assets. To be honest, I think that they really haven't shown much. Hwang was a guy that I was seriously considering for my wild card, but I just couldn't see it in the numbers. And Jimenez as well. Although I think I've still got this love for Jimenez of 2 or 3 seasons ago. The numbers just aren't showing up at the moment. It's almost it's quite hard from an eye test point of view. You would want to pick Jimenez over a guy like Wilson, but when you look at the numbers, Wilson is just so far ahead, and that's ultimately what you have to go with.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if I was wildcarding today, then Raul Jimenez won't even be as part of my team. But I've always had other fires to put out, so he has a stay of execution in my team at the moment. But yeah, but I don't think I'll be moving him out imminently, but definitely at some point in time over the next 2 or 3 weeks, it will happen. Yeah, and then. Looking at Southampton and Burnley, wow. So, Livramento for another clean sheet there?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how good their defence has been. And Southampton are now 32% to keep a clean sheet against Burnley this week. The game itself is one of the middle-of-the-road ones. So, again, we're not expecting a huge number of goals. But we've got Southampton at 1.43 and Burnley at 1.16. So Southampton are the favourites. They're reasonably high clean sheet percentage. I mean, it's higher than Liverpool's clean sheet percentage, obviously, against United. So I think there might be some people actually considering Livramento over some of the Liverpool defenders to start. But when you look at the attacking figures, that I would just say don't do it. You've got too much attacking potential from the other guys. But Livramento is definitely a great option to have in your team, and I think a lot of people will be considering starting him this week, or at least having him, as that first bench option for cover.
Yeah, definitely. And considering how the season has gone so far, he'll probably come off the bench anyway at some point.
I mean, yeah, you almost predict the clean sheets and they're coming off the bench for someone. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then I suppose you're swerving attacking assets from Southampton for now?
Yeah, I don't. There's no one numbers wise. I also looked at the fixtures when I was doing my wild card, and Armstrong was in my thoughts, but the numbers just weren't there for me. And doesn't really seem to be any picks from Southampton or Burnley anywhere in the top sort of 50 players. So for me, it's just when you're looking at any sort of decent game week range. So at the moment, I think just avoid, especially when they start to become rotation risks and they're cheap players. Then it's even worse.
Yeah, definitely. I learned my lesson last week, so yeah. Okay, and then into Brighton and City. Now, Brighton have looked good defensively. They, out of all the budget goalkeepers, Brighton have probably had, so even in terms of defense, they've probably provided the best value at the moment, I would say. Well, apart from maybe Brentford, but now they're probably going to be tested against City. But I mean, looking at how, I mean, a lot of people expected the game against Burnley to be this massively high-scoring game, and I don't blame anybody for thinking that. But now Brighton are much stronger defense as well. What do you think of City's chances of going big in attack in this game?
I don't expect it to be huge. I mean, their attack is just so good that they're still projected to score 1.8 goals. So you're looking at 2 to 3 goals in any normal situation. I think that you're still happily on City assets. You just have to play the game of Pep Roulette and hope that your player starts. I think that's the biggest worry out of everything. But clean sheet wise, City are 51%. Brighton are only down all the way down in 17%. So I don't, as good as their defense has been, when you're playing one of the second best attack in the league behind Liverpool, you're not going to expect a clean sheet. So yeah, I think you want to be certainly jumping on the City assets, and I think Brighton's lack of ability to score is shows through the numbers as well. They're only projected to score 0.68 goals. So really is like, if you've got City defenders, you're very happy. If you've got City attackers, you're very happy. It's just a game of Pep Roulette at the end of the day.
I think I'll go with out of the 5 defenders and the keeper, I'll go triple City, triple Chelsea, and then just sort out the rest because the fixtures are so good over the next few weeks. It's quite incredible. Yeah, I still have Grealish, who's been trolling me for the last 6 game weeks or so. And obviously, I think, look, one of the reasons, I mentioned earlier that when I did my transfers, I deliberately, when I moved Ronaldo on, was upgrade, MacArthur to somebody who I feel has a better chance of starting or has a higher ceiling, which backfired anyway. But even then, I don't regret the decision because ultimately, I still had one extra player to be able to come on off my bench this past weekend. Now, so it was a deliberate move to have a stronger bench. And because at the back of my mind, I knew, okay, Rafinha's not playing, so I needed to, but I was holding. And then with Grealish, I was kind of like, very high chance that he's not going to play. I mean, we were talking about it. But I said, if in the off chance he plays, fine, let me have him for one more week. I have other transfers that I want to make anyway. But now, I definitely want to move him out of my team. I think it doesn't feel like there's any real upside to keeping him anymore.
Well, interestingly enough, I mean, his numbers are incredibly good. He's still ranked in 4th place behind Salah, Mane, and Ronaldo for the next 6 weeks. But the real problem we've got is that last season Grealish was scoring at 140% of his expectation. And this season he's at 60%. So
that's quite a big swing there.
It's a massive swing, and that's, I think, what's showing is because if he was doing it at a similar rate as last season, he would be absolutely shooting lights out at the moment.
Yeah, he was my long-term hold last season because he was so cheap. Yeah. And I remember people started getting rid of him, and I said, you know what? I remember on Twitter as well, I said, just hold him because he almost had like a trend where every 3rd week he was hauling.
Yeah.
And it was so amazing. Like, as long as you just kept patience with him, and because of the way he was playing at Villa, if he scored 1 goal, chances are he was taking all 3 bonus points and getting into the double digits as well. So yeah, I suppose it was never going to be that easy to be able to be a bonus points magnet at City. But I mean, yeah.
I think he's. It's interesting because I think in FPL there's always that factor that you want to pick the guys that are in form, and so I don't disagree with you that rotating him out's not a bad option. You want to stick with the guys that are really in form and producing the numbers. So until that form sort of turns, I do feel like it is just a matter of time, and it will. But maybe until that happens, it's a case of waiting for some of that form to show. And interestingly now, with Gundogan back from injury, he could become a real option because he's a bit cheaper. He's 7.2 million, and I think he's a little, he's sort of similar with Grealish in terms of I think he'll start a lot of the games. So I think there might be a lot of people rotating into Gundogan, and the only other real option seems to be Foden. So I'm not. The only thing that concerns me, I've got Foden in my team, but I'm very concerned about rotation with Foden. I don't know how many games he's going to play. I think 3 out of 4, maybe. I think 4 out of 5 would be pushing it. So it's, if he even plays 3 out of 4, I think I'd be quite chuffed.
Yeah, and Gundogan also plays false 9. And the funny thing is that Jesus has been playing out wide, and he's the natural number 9, and they've been still persisting with the false 9 formation, which I found quite interesting there. But yeah, I agree with you. I think if it was the likes of somebody like a Cancelo, a Diaz, those type of rotation risk where okay, even if they miss a game, the upside of it is that the games they do play, you're probably going to be in the points, and it makes it worth holding. But like with Grealish, the most I've got out of him was 3 points when they got clean sheets, So yeah, I think his time is up. I'll definitely be moving him out of my team this week.
Yeah. I mean, I think also Cancelo and Diaz this season, I think you're going to get 8, 9 out of 10 games from them quite easily in a row. So the rotation risk with Mendy out has been reduced greatly on the back line. It was interesting to see Diaz got rested because I think no one really expected that. Everyone expects him to play every single game. And I think Cancelo for this week might be a slight rotation risk since everyone else in the back line has sort of had a break. But it just goes with the thing. I'm not going to sell Cancelo. If he misses this week, then I know he's good for the next 4 type of thing. So
I think I'll test out my hot streak of bringing in defenders just for them to get left out and see if it's Cancelo. Yeah, that will be quite an interesting one. And then next one is Bradford and Lester. So Leicester, my goodness, what happened there? They all of a sudden they decided to shoot the lights out with their attacking play, and defensively they still just look as crap as ever because since I broke Schmeichel somehow he keeps on conceding 2 goals every single game so far since I've had him. He's conceded exactly 2 goals every game. Now look, so no luck over there, but this is quite an interesting one because now you have Leicester, who have been so iffy throughout the whole season, up against a Brentford team who have been really good, and Brentford have a great run of fixtures. They also got the Magic 3 afterwards, Burnley, Newcastle, Norwich, coming up after the Leicester game. So that's quite an interesting one.
Yeah, I think it's time to target the Brentford guys. Honestly, the Mbeumo and Tony look really, really good. Mbeumo's hit the woodwork 6 times this season.
Yeah, he should go into carpentry or something with that.
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely crazy. I think it's just a matter of time between those two get returns, and I think this is the point. If I could do it, I think I wouldn't even wait until next week. I'd be bringing them in this week against Leicester's defence. Leicester are only 28% to get a clean sheet. I think Brentford are 22%. So I think we're going to see some goals, and it's ranked as the 4th best fixture goal wise. Brentford at 1.28 is around average, and Leicester at 1.52 is above average. So you can't count out Vardy. The man just never stops scoring. No one ever seems to put him in their teams. I mean, it's just a question of how do you get him into your squad, because he really is fantastic. So if anything, if you can fit him in, I think definitely go for a guy like Vardy, and then Mbeumo and Tony for the next probably. Let's have a look here: Leicester, Burnley, Norwich, Newcastle, Everton, Spurs. I mean, I wouldn't not want to have at least one of them for all of those fixtures. So I think pick your poison. Either Tony or Mbeumo, they're both fantastic value.
And in terms of the defensive options, like David Raya has been offering quite good value from a goalkeeping perspective. I mean, he's been the best value goalkeeper for, I think, maybe him and Ramsdale and Sanchez. It's them 3. Yeah. But because of this run of fixtures, do you think Raya becomes an option, or would you decide to go for somebody like Pinnock or someone like that from the defense?
Yeah, I think they're both options, Raya and Pinnock. Brentford have gone from a championship side to being ranked 5th in defence for the next 6 fixtures. So yes, they've got a decent fixture run, but I mean that's quite impressive to be 5th on the list for expected clean sheets for the next 6 games. They're doing something right. So I think I think you can consider almost tripling up in Brentford just because of the pure value you're getting. Defender and a couple of defender, a midfielder, and a striker or a goalkeeper. They've got all the positions covered as well. So whatever your team needs, I think Brentford is probably the place to look.
Yeah, definitely, because I've been shortlisting all of my Grealish replacements, my Adam Armstrong, just Brentford all over the place, So yeah, it's definitely players that I'm targeting. I'm not sure about tripling up, but definitely I look to get at least definitely one, maybe two of them. Yeah. But yeah. And then West Ham and Spurs. So I think it was last season during this fixture where Kane and Son they had a great time out, and then Son, I think I've made my feelings clear. I'm not bringing in Lukaku because the only way I can get Lukaku in is if I remove Son, and I'm not willing to do that because Son is my stat buster. Now, now this is an interesting fixture because West Ham haven't looked great defensively. Spurs haven't looked that great defensively either. But talk us through this one.
Yeah, so this is number 2 in terms of goals projected for the weekend. Second best fixture goal-wise, 3.01 goals projected. We've got West Ham at 1.6, which is decently above average. Spurs at 1.4. So I think we're going to see goals here in this fixture. I don't expect clean sheets. Spurs at 20%, West Ham at 25%. It's not conducive for a game that's going to end 0-0. So I think you're happy if you've got Son, Kane. In terms from the West Ham side, I think Antonio, you can never count him out. People are starting to transfer him out, saying that his form's turned, but a couple of blanks don't make a form turn for me. I think you've got to be patient.
What are people expecting from a 7.4? Well, he started at 7.5, but from an 8 million forward, I mean. He's not like he's blocking anybody from getting into your team. It's a different case. If a premium forward is performing like that, then there's alarm bells, But for 7.5, 8 million, I mean, I just keep hold and decide. Look, you know what? Whatever I get out of him is a bonus.
Yeah, I think he's a hold for now for sure. If you're going to consider getting rid of Antonio, I think it's a big risk, and you probably want to do it maybe around game week 11, game week 13 when he starts to play Liverpool and City especially because they're one of the best defenses at the moment. So I think it's Liverpool, Wolves, City, Brighton. So you're playing 4 of the best defenses in 4 weeks there. So if anything, that's where you're going to start considering it. But for now, Spurs and Aston Villa, I think you're very happily holding on. And probably a season-long hold unless something changes because he's just, like you said, such quality.
And he's staying fit, which is quite an important thing as well. Yeah. And then the big fixture, the one we're all waiting for, is Liverpool traveling to Old Trafford. Now you've mentioned Salah as still being top of the rankings as the captaincy pick. But obviously, a lot of us have Trent Alexander-Arnold in our teams. Some people might have the likes of Ronaldo and Greenwood in their team still. What do you make from... Let's start with the defensive options because I think that's the one that people will be most interested in understanding how to handle. Do we bench them? Do we start them?
Yeah, it's tough this week because this is the number 1 goal fest fixture. 3.27 goals projected. This is going to be an absolute cracker of a game. We've got Liverpool at 1.96 goals projected, which is just huge against a side like Man United. But Man United's defense has been nowhere this season, and United projected at 1.31. So I don't exactly expect clean sheets from the Liverpool side either. Liverpool are only at 27% and United at 14% for clean sheets. So I think this is going to be goals. And what do you do with a guy like Trent? Because if they're goals, Trent's likely to be involved, right? So now you're deciding who am I gonna bench? Can I really bench a guy like Trent?
Imagine benching a premium defender. It goes against everything about the way we play the game.
But it just doesn't make sense to me. I think regardless of of the low clean sheet potential, I think you've just got to go with a guy like Trent. It's so likely that he's going to get something out of one of those attacking returns. And if you sneak in a clean sheet, then it's just a bonus. But don't forget that a guy like Trent, if he assists, he scores, he gets those bonus points as well. So I think to bench him is just madness. I think
against
you've got
Chelsea,
to go with him.
I think there was mitigating circumstances because Chelsea got that yellow card, the red card for Reece James, right?
Yeah.
But even without the clean sheet, Trent picked up, I think, was it 2 bonus points during that game, which I found quite interesting as well. So
yeah, he did.
Say,
two bonus points.
Yeah, he's so involved in the game that he can even pick, even if there's no clean sheet, he's potentially a bonus points magnet as well.
Yeah, big time bonus point magnet. So yeah, I wouldn't be considering that. Especially, I think a lot of people are thinking, oh, I've got Livramento, he's playing Burnley. They've got a better chance of a clean sheet, but don't bench Trent. It's going to end badly for you.
And then game week 9 to game week 13 is a massive run for Manchester United. So is it time for people to start selling their Manchester United assets now if they haven't done so already?
Look, I think it's, like we spoke about this fixture turn for United, and it was always going to be tough. And I think the manager's under huge pressure at the moment. I think if he doesn't, get some results soon, I think his time is going to be limited. So they've got Liverpool, Spurs, City. They've got Watford wedged in there, which is going to be a great fixture. But then they've got Chelsea after that and Arsenal. I'm not going to say Arsenal is going to be a tough fixture because Arsenal haven't been great this season. But things for United start picking up from game week 14 against Arsenal. So I think that's when you can start rotating back in. But for the moment, I think there's no clear United asset that you want in your team. Ronaldo's way too expensive. He doesn't score against top 6 teams. We spoke about that earlier in the pod. Last season, he hardly scored a goal against a top 6 team. And that was in Serie A. So when you start to look at a comparison for I think Premier League teams, I'm not going to see Ronaldo scoring many goals against the top 10 in my opinion. So I would be targeting the real bottom fixtures with a guy like him. And I don't think there's another clear option. You don't want to touch their defense at the moment. So I think you're just going to be sort of rotating out and waiting for the turn.
And if he's not a rotation risk, someone like Greenwood at the price he is he somebody possibly worth holding because he's so cheap?
He's been incredible, and he was my pick at the beginning of the season to outscore Bruno, and it worked fantastically for me. But I got rid of him last week, and he scored this weekend. But there was no regrets in my decision. I think the fixture run is just going to be too tough. There is a slight rotation risk with him, although he really seems to be showing his quality. I would just be waiting for those fixtures to turn, and then maybe him or Ronaldo are the options to bring back in, or both.
Awesome. Well, we've wrapped up going through all of the fixtures. So yeah, let's hope to more points. I'm hoping that I can keep up this year because I feel like I got bailed out by the triple captain of Salah, and I suppose the defense bailed all of us out this week, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that was it's a bit of an anomaly if you think of it, because with the amount of clean sheet points flying around, it was quite amazing. But it was a very, very high percentage of teams which just had so many players or defenders with clean sheets in it.
Yeah, there have been. I mean, if we speak about clean sheets, my model predicted 45 clean sheets so far in the first 8 weeks, and there have already been 49. So it's definitely a season that the clean sheets are outperforming for the first 8 game weeks, whereas the goals, I projected 220 for the first 8 weeks, and there have only been 214 scored. So slightly fewer goals and more clean sheets, which makes sense. But clean sheets, 4 more than projected is pretty big for an 8-week range. So it seems to be the season of defenders so far.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, we'll catch up next week and hopefully we have as good news as this week, I suppose. And yeah, all the best to everybody for the upcoming game week.
Yeah, good luck and hopefully green arrows. Enjoy the footy this week, Clyde. Thanks.
Awesome. Cheers, man.